So, and again, full transparency. And so I will tell a patient what they don't want to hear, as well
Mhm.
as help them, navigate that system if there is potentially something that, if there's a disconnect, as I like to say, right? And so when I am walking that path, I'm really investigating their request or their complaint. And it is either, validated through the information that they provide me, or I have to investigate that more. Right. And so the purpose really is to instill trust in the system because I do see both sides. Right. I am on the consultant side of things. I work with providers. And so I really have like this special place where I'm able to see all the sides. And so I understand that the information that the patient might be getting might not necessarily be the doctor's values or how they think, or maybe even what they recommend, right? And it might just be whatever that person that's answering that phone could have been their first day, right? It could have been the hygienist's first day. It could be a temp. There are just so many different factors that are involved. And so I really try and paint that picture for the patient so that there is just a well-rounded, full understanding of how that process works, right? Insurance didn't cover my bill. Well, ultimately, it's your responsibility to know what your insurance covers, kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that because I think that's something that we struggle with sometimes too is like you educate the patient on what the insurance does and doesn't do. And the patient think if the insurance doesn't cover something is essentially comes back and it's our fault as a clinician that the insurance just doesn't cover certain things. And I'm like, we can only control what we can control. And if it's not within our control, then unfortunately that goes back to your insurance company. And knowing that part of it is so within that picture, how did the RCM come about? Because the RCM is such a big topic in our industry. So how did the RCM play a role and how did you get interested into that?
And so, yeah, that's how I problem solve, right?
Oh,
So I got into dental management and worked my way up as a manager. And so, I mean, immediately, as soon as I would start in a new practice, I just saw all these things I needed to fix, right? And it comes down to a systemization issue. So that's why I say elite dental systems, right? Yes, we do billing, we offer billing, but my heart is really in the consulting because the patient should be aware that there could be a potential balance. So I see that there.
all right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dentman. Masood, this is our first podcast of 2026.
Let's go.
And I cannot believe it, but man, Miss Shelby, we have started this podcast November of 2024 and time has flied, man. I cannot believe it, Masood. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so fast. You've grown
Goes
old.
quick.
You didn't have any hair on your face back then, Dr. Mila.
Yeah, no, I'm getting old, man. I'm aging. Thank you for calling it out, Masood. I know I'm getting old. It's coming. Well, Miss Shelby, thank you so much for being here. I'm very grateful for your time. Happy New Year. I hope you enjoyed your Christmas, your New Year. You have a lot of big things, I'm sure, in the box that is hiding for 2026, and you're gonna accomplish it all. Just to kind of give everyone a background, Miss Shelby is widely known as a dental detective. She is a certified dental billing specialist, a certified patient advocate, and a respected expert in revenue cycle management. Through her work at Elite Dental System, she has helped practices strengthen their billing system, protect the patient relationship, and improve financial performance. Her deep knowledge, clear communication, and passion for education have made her a trusted voice in our industry. Ms. Shelby, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, the question one I want to ask you, the dental detective part, where did that come from?
Yeah, good question. I really wanted to, everything that I do is based in ethics, and I really wanted to make sure that I walk the talk, right? Regardless of who it is I'm talking to, whether it be doctor or whether it be patient. I want to make sure that I'm giving that unbiased advice. And so the dental detective was a way to be able to house, right, both of those in one. So I just recently launched a YouTube where I will be, it'll be educational videos, and that'll be, providers and patients will basically be able to get valuable information from.
That is awesome. So the one thing that is fascinating to me is that you talk about a lot about that patient strength and patient essentially you're advocating for the patient. Where did that come from? Why? Because in the world that we're in, especially with the DSO model, with the corporate model, I mean, as a dentist, I can tell you that that has been one of the biggest things for our patient when they come through my practice, is that they always have something negative to say about the corporate. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, but it seems like we're kind of, with the corporate dentistry, we are kind of walking away from that patient experience. And then it makes it harder even for us as a private practice to kind of try to maneuver that. So what did that came about? How did you come up with that? And how do you help the patient to have a better experience?
It really comes down to education. So, and again, full transparency. And so I will tell a patient what they don't want to hear, as well
Mhm.
as help them, navigate that system if there is potentially something if there's a disconnect, as I like to say, right? And so when I am walking that path, I'm really investigating their request or their complaint. And it is either, validated through the information that they provide me, or I have to investigate that more, right? And so the purpose really is to instill trust in the system, because I do see both sides, right? I am on the consultant side of things. I work with providers. And so I really have like this special place where I'm able to see all the sides. And so I understand that the information that the patient might be getting might not necessarily be the doctor's values or how they think, or maybe even what they recommend, right? And it might just be whatever that person that's answering that phone could have been their first day, right? It could have been the hygienist's first day. It could be a temp. There are just so many different factors that are involved. And so I really try and paint that picture for the patient so that there is just a well-rounded, full understanding of how that process works, right? Insurance didn't cover my bill. Well, ultimately, it's your responsibility to know what your insurance covers, kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that, because I think that's something that we struggle with sometimes too, is like you educate the patient on what the insurance does and doesn't do. And the patient thinks if the insurance doesn't cover something, is essentially comes back and it's our fault as a clinician that the insurance just doesn't cover certain things. And I'm like, we can only control what we can control. And if it's not within our control, then unfortunately that goes back to your insurance company. And knowing that part of it is, so within that picture, how did the RCM come about? Because the RCM is such a big topic in our industry. So how did the RCM play a role, and how did you get interested into that?
And so, yeah, that's how I problem solve, right?
Oh.
So I got into dental management and worked my way up as a manager. And so, I mean, immediately, as soon as I would start in a new practice, I just saw all these things I needed to fix, right? And it comes down to a systemization issue. So that's why I say elite dental systems, right? Yes, we do billing, we offer billing, but my heart is really in the consulting, because the patient should be aware that there could be a potential balance. So I see that there is a disconnect in maybe how that was maybe translated initially when we presented that treatment plan, or the verbiage that we used, right? And so there is really this deep seated passion to empower these practices so that they have the tools so that they don't run into these types of problems, right? We are working proactively, not reactively. And ultimately, the main thing is doctor getting paid for everything that doctor does, right? There are so many things that doctor doesn't realize that they're doing and they're not billing for, or they're writing off. And okay, that's fine, but at least have the patient be aware of that, right? Like, okay, you're not going to charge them for this x-ray, not going to charge them for this exam. Well, if you don't teach them to appreciate that, then as soon as they get a bill for a downgrade, they're going to point the finger at you and say that you're overcharging me.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think that's such an important thing to kind of have understanding of, especially in the time that we're in right now. I feel like people are in a different time frame because everybody is kind of like struggling in their own way. So when they get surprises, it becomes almost, they become very defensive of it. And it's, I know, and I've seen it because I'm in a day-to-day practice, so I see a lot of things happening. Because you talked about the communication, the transparency, you talk about the treatment planning. What are some of the mistakes that you see the offices are making when it comes to presenting the treatment, how they're presenting it, or the verbiage that they're using that can cause some of that miscommunication between the patient and the office or the front staff. What are some of the pattern that you're seeing? And if you're seeing those patterns, how are you addressing it with the offices?
Yeah, great question, loaded. Well, it first starts with that first phone call and really making sure that, insurance verification, it's my worst nightmare, right? It's not even a service that I offer, but it's a service that I teach.
Mm.
And so it really just starts with that, right? And if you don't take the time to take those extra steps, then it's going to affect your bottom line. And it's also then going to affect that relationship with the patient. So ultimately, when we're presenting that treatment plan to the patient, we want to be able to answer any questions that they have, right? We've already checked it. We've already are addressed. It's already been reviewed. Now, again, there are systems to things. So I work with a general practice that has a specialist. Well, a specialist, they might have a completely different, if they're out of network, they're going to have a completely different breakdown. And so it comes down to transparency and being able to be honest with the patient so that they understand how that process works, right? Like, I understand you want a quote for an implant. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to get you scheduled for your consultation first. Here's $100 deposit. When we're going to get a full breakdown of benefits, we're going to you make them feel like they're important because they are. And you're going to be doing all these extra steps to make sure that they get that information that they're requesting. But at the end of the day, it's only an estimate. And that's what insurance even tells us on the phone. They tell us this is only an estimate. So we only know what you're going to get paid after process that claim, right? But what I can promise you is we are in network with your insurance and we are binded by the contract. So no matter whatever they tell us we can charge is what we're going to charge you.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such a great advice.
Yeah. And Shelby, I mean, what got you interested in this line of work? Like, what was the moment that gave you the motivation that this is a big gap that I'm seeing? Like, who was that patient and what kind of first interaction did you see to get you in this field of work?
So when it comes to, because I kind of have like two sides, right? So ultimately getting into dental billing, I saw, okay, I need doctor to get paid for what he's doing. Doctor's doing all these services, and not only that, but patient is getting upset and they don't understand that doctor's not doing anything wrong, number one. Now, as far as the advocacy side, my dad is my inspiration. So I've been in dentistry since I was basically a senior in high school. So dentistry I've known my entire life. I started as a certified dental assistant. And so I really believe that everything that's happened in my life has brought me to this moment, right? Like, I feel like this is genuinely my purpose, right? And I am the power of attorney of my father, and I am left to figure out and navigate everything for him. And you would think someone that is in my position, working from home, right, in the dental industry, that it would be easier for me to get my dad care. But we're just a consumer in the market, just like everybody else, right? And I'm finding that, I know I have all this information. So it's a lot easier for me, yes, to navigate the system. I could only imagine someone else that's in my shoes trying to navigate it and how hard that would be, right? There's all these different insurance plans. Like, if it's an HMO, you have to be assigned, and then you have to, they're going to refer you. And, there's just so many different nuances that are involved. And so really it's about putting, number one, with the billing, it's about putting power and empowering the provider. And with the advocacy, it's empowering the patient with information so that they can navigate that system easier, so that when they're making that phone call and they're scheduling that appointment with the doctor, they're not, overwhelmed and frustrated already, right? They're like, no, like, I already know what to expect. I know how this works. And I have a third party that's validated this process. So they feel great about it.
Yeah, I love that.
Totally.
What do you
Especially
think
that you take
about,
care of sites.
yeah, I was gonna ask, me and Masood, we were discussing about the RCM, and I'm in the process of doing some transitioning and all that. What do you feel that, because with the way the RCM system works, because we discuss a lot about taking the pressure off of the office staff, so the office staff are not involved with doing like data stuff, so they can focus on the patient experience. How do you feel about outsourcing the offices, outsourcing the RCM to the essentially like other countries or other people or other individuals, so that stress can come off. For an individual that are involved in the RCM world, how do you feel about that? Do you recommend it to the offices to outsource those kind of services? And what is your thought processes behind that?
Absolutely. So when it comes to outsourcing specifically for billing, and so that's why I kind of offer both, right? If you want to keep it in-house, we can do the consulting, but if you want to take it out, and third party source it, I believe it is honestly the best way to go. And ultimately, the reason why is we're separating that financial conversation from the clinical care. Right. And so what I like to implement in the practices that I work with is a separate billing department. So the front office is empowered, right? A patient has a really intricate billing question. Now, if the front office can't answer that question within with the information that they have in front of their face, they get to say, well, we actually have a billing expert, a billing specialist, a billing department, and here's their line, here's their email. Go ahead and follow up with them and they'll answer your questions. Now, the thing with outsourcing is you just want to make sure that it's an expert, right? There are so many people now that are in the industry when it comes to billing. And so you just really want to make sure you're trusting the right person with that information and they're really representing your brand. Every office is different, right? Ultimately, we all have to follow the same rules, but every office is a little bit different. And so when I tailor my services, I'm really tailoring my services to the way that the practice, wants that message branded.
And Shelby,
Yeah,
if you were
that's
to
awesome.
onboard someone else on what you're doing, like if you were to build a team and if you were doing like full art, like doing the billing for full arch cases that are like $20,000, $30,000, how would you train them to build that trust with the patients? Like, I'm just saying, if you were to like work with an offshore team that like they weren't with you, but you still had to train them, how would you do that? Does my question make sense to you, by the way?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes sense because I work with offices that do full mouth rehab, right? And so cuz it can get very overwhelming. And so my motto is keep it simple. Keep it simple, right? We don't want to overwhelm the patient with too much information. And when it comes to full mouth, cases, full mouth reconstruction, insurance is a very minute detail when it comes to it, right? At the end of the day, it's a coupon, right? And so again, these are things that are already discussed with the patient before we're scheduling the appointment, not to scare them or even during the consult, right? And so there is already this understanding that there is not going to be this large dependence on insurance. That's number one, right? And then number two, when doctors having that conversation, they have that new patient exam and they are saying, you would be a great candidate to see my periodontist. You need full mouth rehab, giving the patient, even the range. Right? Like these cases usually start around $25,000, $18,000, just so they have an understanding of where that is. So they're not sticker shocked, right? And it's all about, for me, I don't want to waste the provider's time either, right? And so, okay, yeah, then pay for the consult, but that's an hour of valuable time with the specialist, right? We want someone that's going to already be committed to that treatment. And so already kind of building that up verbally. We're not giving them anything, in paper yet. And then when they are actually in that chair and you already have, the green light, then you kind of go over those details. And I really don't like to focus on itemizing the services. That comes after, all right? You're going to assess the patient's needs and you're going to say, okay, would you like a fixed option, removable option? These are your price tiers, right? And then from there, your background will code it, right? But I really don't like to because the coding can get overwhelming, right? And again, the coding you will get after the fact. And so you'll package it together as one figure and then you itemize it after. That's at least how I like to do it.
And
That's
Shelby,
amazing.
what has been the hardest case you've seen, like with a patient or billing? If you feel comfortable to share, by the way. If
No,
not,
I know there's just,
please share.
there's so many. I would say, it's really, I'm getting into medical billing now.
Mm.
So this is such an undercover, like untapped revenue source for providers, because this could even make or break a case, right? You might have a patient that's on fixed income, but they have Medicare Advantage and it's a PPO plan, and they have an illness that qualifies, they have a medical condition that qualifies for dental implants, right? That's going to improve their quality of life. Now, your average biller, your average, admin team is not going to know all those extra things, right? Well, someone like me, I've taken the initiative to study this specifically. And as a patient advocate, 99% of my medical claims are being processed for dental treatment. Okay. And I've seen it for implants, and I see it for full mouth rehabilitation cases. Mind you, that has to be a medical, condition, but that's just one of many ways, right, to make that sale and to have an opportunity to do that treatment for patients, especially for medically complex patients.
Different situations that you have to go through. Can you mention like one of the hardest or funniest like examples that you've dealt with a patient in your career?
Man, Masood, you always ask the hard questions, bro.
I know, right? Well,
She got
you
the
know,
guest puzzled up.
I'm always just I'm a worker bee, and so I'm just always doing something, right? And so the times that really stick out to me are times that, make kind of hit the heart in a way that kind of take me out of that focus, if you will. And so it like brings me to my purpose, right? And so I would have a patient that would just call the office just to talk to me because I was the only one, and it was a senior patient. I was the only one that would take the time to help him. And it's not even like he was getting treatment with us, but he was like, no one will explain things to me like you do. And so I need to figure out, what's my best options. And I just was like, I have no, yes, mind you, it was exhausting, but that's something that I remember, and that's something that, he never did treatment at the practice that he was calling at, but, as a patient advocate, if he were to now find my advocacy, at the time I didn't have my advocacy business, right? I didn't have a nationwide nonprofit. Now I do. So now I'm hoping to alleviate that strain, because there are those patients out there that need that extra TLC, right? They need that help from dental offices, and they just don't have the time, right? These offices are busy. They just don't have the time to give patients that extra TLC. And so that's one experience that really kind of hits home with me and brings me to my purpose a lot.
Yeah, I love that. Um, Michelle, the one thing I wanted to ask you, as we are going into, we're in year 2026, everything that I hear in dentistry, it's all comes down to they always talk about system, system, system. They're like, you gotta have systems in place. You gotta have systems. So I really want to understand the definition when they're talking about systems. The systems, are they systems from a perspective of like putting like HRs in place, putting revenue cycle management team together? Like, what are the system that is being discussed in the dental world? Because like I am truly like, even me as a clinician, I'm like, I don't really understand what you guys are talking about, because everything is like system, system, system. Okay,
Sure.
let's define that system, and really like I want the audience to understand what we mean by that system. And I think you'll be the good person to answer that.
Well, to me, it's something that's repeatable, right? It's something that can be repeated, it can be replicated over and over and over again, and you're getting the same consistent result. And it creates a cohesive, well oiled machine, right? And so that system might look different for different offices, right? So you have one office that takes HMO insurance, they're going to have a different system than an office that takes only PPO, or an office that takes fee for service, right? And so that's really where the systems come in play, but it will be repeatable dependent on the type of office. That's the best way I could
Yeah,
probably explain.
no, that makes sense. What are some of the systems that you see, the practices you work with? What are some of the systems that you're seeing that is helping the practices to become efficient? That can be anything. I mean, what if it's a software that is helping them, if it's the office staff, what are some of the systems that you see some of the For example, an office that is a PPO, for example, what is it that they're using that is making them become efficient and they can replicate that?
Yeah, the goal really is to not be reactive. And so
Mm.
that's really what I teach is how to be proactive. So what can we do today that's going to have us be prepared tomorrow? That's going to make us be prepared for the patient that's coming in. So that could be from chart prep. I'm a huge fan of chart prep, okay? And if you don't chart prep, then you are missing out. And you're missing out on revenue. You're missing out on giving that patient care, and you're also missing out on giving your team an enjoyable work experience, right? Otherwise, you're in reactionary mode. You're putting out fires all the time. So if you're constantly putting out fires, you have a system issue, right? PPO offices getting breakdown of benefits. But your breakdown of benefits, what codes is doctor doing the most, right? What services does he like to provide? Get that information ahead of time so that when you're ready to present that treatment plan, you're giving the patient that information and you feel secure. You know how it works, right? And you feel confident, right? That you're giving that patient that information. Then when you go and schedule that visit, you're collecting a deposit. So you're already getting, you know, an agreement with the patient. You're already getting some type of, like agreement with the patient. So they're already ready. They're already committed. That's what I'm saying. You have a commitment already from the patient and they're less likely to cancel. And not only that, let's just say they do. Let's just say they're an habitual no-show, right? They're one of those patients that aren't really the best at showing up. Well, guess what? It's going to be a lot easier to take that cancellation fee out of that deposit than trying to ask them for that cancellation fee and trying to get them back in the door.
Yeah.
Right. And then it just it trickles down to everything, collecting the balance, billing the claim. There is a system for everything from start to finish.
Yeah, I love that. I think that you said it the best. I think that has been the biggest thing within our industry that I think a lot of dentists are having a hard time, especially when they want to transition to like owning the practice. That has been the biggest thing is like figuring out what works for them at the beginning of it. I think that's the challenge of like what do I need to do to figure out what I need in order for me to operation? Because clinically, we're fine. Like, dentistry is dentistry. Just figuring out those systems and what needs to be in place to be successful. I think that's the challenging part when it comes to that, to figure out what can we do to put the systems in place and, as you said, replicate it over and over again and essentially become successful. Now, from the revenue cycle part of things, that's something I'm super interested to learn more and more about myself, because the insurance thing, I think posting a payment and doing all of that, that itself, verifying the insurance and all these things. The one thing I want to know with the AI and everything that's happening with the technology, see that going in the next few years? Do you think things will get automated? Do you see a way that things can get automated? And if they are, do you think that the AI will change the landscape of that?
1,000%. I think it's going to weed out, the weaker billing companies to the ones that, at the end of the day, and even just offices, at the end of the day, it's a tool to be utilized, but it is not, an end all be all. I believe that having, the human touch and having someone making sure they're watching over whatever the AI is doing, and validating that information is correct. I believe when it comes to billing, when it comes to, revenue, to me, it's a compliance issue. And so there are so many different rules for every single different insurance. Aetna, you can charge gingivectomy. Delta Dental, you can't. That could change depending on the year, right? And so it's something that is very complex. I believe that it's something that can be very useful. And I believe that if you use it the right way, that it absolutely can substantially help your practice. I mean, even in my businesses, I truly believe that if I didn't have AI to help me, I would not be where I am with my nonprofit right now. There's just no way.
Yeah.
So I believe in it.
No, I love that. And one final thing I want to ask, you discuss a lot about that nonprofit. Really, what does the nonprofit do, and what is the goal that you have, and what are you really trying to accomplish with it?
The goal is to ease the burden of just the parts of dental care that are burdensome to patients, right? patients not understanding their dental insurance or simply wanting a dental insurance and saying, hey, am I a good candidate? Should I get insurance? Well, let me see your treatment plan. If you have a mouthful of treatment, probably would be a good idea. And then they're like, okay, well, how do I make sure I know how to easily navigate the system so that they can utilize their insurance with the best provider?
Mhm,
Quick, easy, fast. It might take them days. It's going to take me 10 minutes.
mhm,
And not only that, I'm now helping the ecosystem of the dental industry,
mhm,
right? I'm making it easier. I'm making it quicker. And just really having a reliable, unbiased source.
mhm.
That's really what it comes down to. I will say that sometimes there are bad seeds out there, right? And I hate to say it, but it's true. In every industry you're going to go in. And so my goal is to really highlight the providers that are good seeds, right? There are good providers. There are providers that are doing extraordinary work and that very much care about their profession and they care about their patients. And so the goal is to create a community. So I'm working on a community resource page right now, and it's going to highlight providers that are experts in their area. And it will, basically, just kind of depending on what category they're in, will highlight that special so that patients don't have to do a general Google search, right? If they want to know more about implants, if they want to know more about sleep apnea, they can go to my website and they can easily click on a vetted resource that's not a random Google search. It's not a random chat, AI search, right? And they don't have to pay for it. It's free.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. I honestly love the fact that you're taking the time and doing that. In any way we can support, please let me know because I think it's amazing for because I even see in my own practice sometimes you have the seniors that come in and they really don't know. They're like, I don't know where to get the insurance. I don't know where to start from. I'm not sure what's going on. Like they have so many questions
Yeah.
that it's hard for them to find their answer. Sometimes my office manager sits with them and try to help them maneuver, even finding the insurance. But,
Right.
but to having a place and a source that they can go to and really figure out how to connect the dot and how to figure those things out, I think, my hat goes out. I mean, I think you're doing an amazing job. Thank you for doing that for the industry. I think it's going to make a big, big difference, especially with the older patients or even the
Right.
patients that don't have access to a lot of care. And I believe that I used to practice in Iowa. I don't believe that the patients they don't have access to care because there's not a lot of dentists. But even when the dentists are there, I don't believe they're very well educated on the insurance. They don't understand what the insurance does. So I think having a source to go to, I think that's an amazing thing. And so, what is your YouTube channel? What's the information on that? Because I definitely want to put that into the description. So if people want to find you on YouTube, what's the information on that?
Yeah, yeah. So the goal is to be a trusted source by both, right?
Okay.
So that's the goal ultimately is doc, you have this patient, it's a senior patient, and your staff's taking extra time. Like, here, let's recommend them to an advocate and we can trust them that they're gonna be able to navigate that patient for you. So the new YouTube channel is the_dental detective, and the channel is the dental detective. So it's brand new and we're excited to get some content put up.
Yes, I can't wait. We're gonna definitely. I'm gonna put the link in the description for anyone that's looking. Please let us
Awesome.
know with the nonprofit, whatever we can do to help. I would love to kind of support everybody here with whatever that we can. Me and Masood, so if it can be a source to you, please let us know. And Shelby, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate this conversation. These are the type of conversation that I enjoy because truly I have a notebook here and I can continue to take notes and just learn so much. And I think these are the conversations that's going to change the landscape of dentistry, the future of dentistry. This is why we started this podcast because I really want to educate other doctors about the possibilities and what we can do. So thank you so much for taking the time and hopping on. Truly grateful for your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelby. Thank you.